Today, what I would like to look at is having some movement with different kinds of objects than we've been used to with our player, or we've been playing with moving enemies around using an animation player. In this case, I actually want to go back to kind of the beginning and have a look at those rigid bodies again, which are a really powerful and kind of cool way of working with things, but they are. We'll bring up some. Bring up a whiteboard here. They work very differently than our standard movement. Let's say we've got our player here, and we're doing some movement. We press an up key or something like that, and we are in code doing something like movement dot y equals, and we are adding or changing the position of this via code, which is great. It gives me complete control over it. Whereas with the rigid bodies that we started with, those cubes you may remember dropping from the ground and just hitting, all we did was just put them in the room, give them some physical properties, and Godot has a physics engine that takes care of all of the movement um, that is applied to this object. So you've got it here, and you've got some gravity pulling it down because it's a rigid body, and that's what rigid bodies do. So if I were to mix up, say, an up arrow key and then start changing the movement variable, you're going to get into conflict between the physics engine and the code that you're producing. The physics engine's job is to say, hey, gravity pulls things down, and when you're pressing up and it says move it up, the physics engine is saying, no, I expect it to be down here at a later point in time, but as long as you're holding the arrow, that's going to contradict where the physics engine thinks things are and where you are going to be. So we can still have some control over rigid bodies rather than just putting them into the room and letting them be there, but we need to do it inside the physics engine. We need to take advantage of some of the physics engine features that are keeping track of and giving forces to objects. So it comes into a lot of physics class. So I just want to very quickly look at how we can play with some of the those objects, and then I want to add a feature for kind of creating them into our game. I envision with this game, this Indiana Jones style boulders that are falling down, or maybe arrows shooting out from the room, or you could have something ping ponging across as an enemy that to try and distract you. So before we get back to our game, let's just have a quick look at how we can create this. And I am just going to make a very quick 2D scene here. Just call it the test scene. I'm going to add a static body to it. I want to just recreate the floor, and I want to have a static body here. I want to just have a little place with a camera so I can see the whole thing. I can see what's going on with my world. So let me add to that a mesh instance like so, and we will also add to it a collision shape, of course. There we go. Let's give that collision shape a box, and I am going to just scale this whole thing 50 by 50. So we have a big, long platform to land on. Let's give that a cube mesh. Oh, not that, a cube mesh. There we go. So now we've got our little ground plane to work with. We'll throw a camera in there so we can see this world and get a good view at it from a distance. Just rotate you down here. Back a little bit there. There we go. Get in on this camera. Where is my camera? Oh, I'm facing the wrong way. That's why. Let's pull it down like that. And let's open up the field of view so we get to see there's part of my ground plane there. Perfect. Move it back a little bit so I get to see most of this world. All right. And to this, I'm going to now add a one of these static bodies that we've worked with before. Oh, this is a 2D. That's why I want to change that type to a spatial node. There we go. All right, so to this, I'm going to add a rigid body like we did before. And I'm going to give that rigid body a mesh instance just so it has a shape. I'm going to pick something a little funkier than a circle. I like the capsule mesh. It gives mesh. For these, it gives us kind of a funny shape that bounces around like a lot like a football because it's oblong there. And to that, of course, we need a collision shape, also a capsule. And I'm just going to call this guy pill here. And if I bring the pill up here, you can see there it is. Maybe if I rotate it a little bit when it falls, something fun will happen. So if I play my scene, oh, forgot to turn my camera on, so I'm not going to get anything. Oh, I did get it. Must have gone on by default. There we go. We've got our pill that just kind of fell down, rolled over here, just as we'd expect with a rigid body. It's got built-in physics being done by the physics engine. So if I want, however, I can add some code to this, which will allow me to manipulate and the movements of this, but within the physics engine. So I'm going to take this pill and I'm going to add a script to it. And as I said, we can't do the classical movement, but let's first of all start with our first kind of movement, which is kind of like when we bump into things that happen naturally with the physics engine. We can simulate that in code, and this is what we call an impulse, or like think of it like a punch. You're giving a force in a particular direction at a like you're hitting it with a bat or a punch or something like that. So I'm going to do this just to test it out. I'm going to put this in our physics process delta. Definitely want to be in here because you need to be using this for the physics engine. And I'm going to say if input dot is action just pressed. And I'm just going to use the UI accept. That's an enter key, so I'm not using it for anything else. It's a little test point here. What I would like to do is to give this a little kick in a particular direction. And previously, we would move and transform the object, but in this case, I don't necessarily know where it is. But what I can do is give it an impulse in a particular area. So we can use this apply a central impulse function, which is part of the physics engine. And you'll notice it takes a vector 3. So the idea here is that, and I can only really show you this in 2D. Let's say we had our X and our Y here, and we've got a circle. Pretend we were doing this in 2 dimensions, but we are actually doing it in 3. The idea here is that I give on the X and the Y, from the X and Y direction, a particular force, or an impulse in this case, and I can give it in a little bit in the Y and a lot in the X, which means the thing's going to move kind of that direction, or I could give a lot of Y in the Y direction and a little bit in the X, in which case you're going to move more down, or I can move it in negative X, in which case it's kind of like where you're kicking the ball and how hard you kick the ball from these different directions. So the vector 3 is allowing us to basically say how far in each direction we're going to go. And if I remember, y is up. So I'm going to just try this to see in pure up direction. If I do a vector 3, notice I need to pass it an x, y, and z. So I'm going to say 0 in the x direction, 5 in the y direction, and 0 in the z direction. And so think of these as kind of, the pressure or how hard you're hitting it in that different direction. And adding these all together, we get what's called a vector. And if I were to play this level, let's see what happens. Now, this is only happening with when I hit enter, so we'll see it just falls to the ground. And then if I tap enter, you can see I get a little pulse upwards. I can keep tapping enter here. And it's kind of like I'm hacky sacking. I'm just kicking it a little bit there. And maybe I want to go a little bit higher here to give it a little more power every time I kick it. You can see gravity's pulling it down, but I give a little punch upwards. So this could also be used as a control for a character if you wished to do something like that and have, for some reason, a character that bumped around. Maybe you were making a pool style game, or maybe you're making a Sonic the Hedgehog kind of game where you got bumped around. Bumper cars would be a great one as well. So you can see here, we can now, let's go 50 in this direction, and I'd go 0 here. So now I'm getting it in the X direction. So I'm going to get a blast of force in that sideways direction, like a kick. But notice it doesn't keep on doing it. It's just a quick hit. And of course, you can mix and match them in whatever angle you want to fire this in any direction that you like. And you can see that's kicking it up. This would be a great for a football style game or something like that. So there are central impulses. And the idea being is it's a quick bounce or a quick hit. Now you have another way if you want to continuously apply pressure to that, and that would be to apply a central force. Sorry, not apply central force, it'd be an add central force. To that. Now this is also takes a vector 3, and the difference being here is rather than this being a punch or a hit, this is kind of like a steady push. And that's why we don't apply it, we add it. We keep pushing as we go along. And we could, I'm going to just get rid of this, hit the enter key here, and I would like to add a central force, and you can see the effect here. I'm going to do it in a vector 3. Let's go in the Z direction this time. So I'm going to go 0, 0, 5 in my Z direction. And you can see the difference here. In this case, you've got kind of this pushing barrel roll type thing. So you can see that the character just starts rolling towards me continuously. So this is a great way of being able to kind of move something along or control it. You could also have it, when it hit a wall, you could add the force in the opposite direction by flipping some kind of variable here. But here's a great idea for, creating barrels from Donkey Kong, or, those boulders from the Indiana Jones or something like that. So there you've got a rigid body with 2 different ways of controlling it. And there's a lot more to be able to control these rigid bodies as well, but I don't want to get into all the different details. I've put a video on Moodle for everything you could possibly want to know about adding forces in rigid bodies in Godot if you want to go a little deeper. But now I'd like to see how can we actually, integrate this into our game. And I've got my my test game here. So let's, I'm going to actually, so that I've got multiple instances of this, or I can create multiple instances, I'm going to take this pill and actually turn it into its own scene. So really quick way, if you've decided you've made one thing and you realize, actually I want more of these for later on and I need to be able to make this into its own scene, you can just grab a branch of your tree. I'll call this pill a branch. It's got a bunch of nodes connected to it. And if we right click on it and we can say save branch as scene, a really handy way of very quickly making an independent scene of this. I'll call it pill scene. And you can see now it's brought up its own scene, and we now have a pill scene that has the code in it and everything like that. So I can now very quickly add more of these to my game. So in fact, I'm going to ditch this out of my level here, because what I'd like to do is have something that's going to spawn or create these pills. Again, kind of an idea of a waterfall or bullets or something that's going to keep recreating these enemies, and they can be part of my game. So I'm going to add a new object to this level, and this is going to be just a spatial node. I just need a spot to kind of have coordinates where I can start something, and I'm going to call this a spawner. And the spawner is really just going to create pills. So I can grab that spawner now. You can see it's just a point in space. It doesn't really do anything or have any physical presence. It's just there. But that can at least be where I'm going to create these pills from. And right now, if I'm not mistaken, the pills are all being pushed this direction. So I'm going to just put it up over there and see how this works. And what I'd like to do is to add a bit of code to that spawner. So I'm going to add a little script here. Oh, and I've already got some code there, so that's okay. We'll done this in a test before, so I'm going to get rid of that. And yeah, let's see how this works. So the idea here is I want the spawner to create pills. And in order to do that, I need to get that pill file ready to be able to put them into the game. And you don't want to do this kind of on the fly, because sometimes these 3D graphics you're working with can have really big textures, and every time you just want to load it into the computer's memory, it may take a little bit of time. So at the beginning of the game, I'm going to preload this pill file. And in order to do that, I need a variable to refer to it. So I'm going to say var pill, and it equals preload, and then the name of the file that we want. Oh, that came up there. There we go. I can just go down here to find my pill scene, like so. So now, rather than having to have all that typed before, I can just refer to the pill file as pill. And that's all ready to go. Now, I don't want these pills to be continuously created. I'd like to create them, every second or so, something like that. So I need something on the spawner that's going to keep calling that. And if you haven't done this before, this is a great time to use a timer node. So I'm going to attach a timer node as a child of the spawner. And the timer, I'm going to auto start it here. And basically, a timer is just a little countdown timer. That's all it does. It ticks down 1 second and then has the ability to send out a signal. And the only signal you get with a timer is, hey, time's done. So I'm going to send that signal back to my spawner code. So now I've got a little bit of a function here, a callback function. So when the alarm goes off, the timer goes off, bing, sends a signal back to here, and now we have something that says, oh, what do I want to do every second? Well, I'd like to create a pill. And it's 3 lines of code, but it's pretty easy here. All we need to do is basically create the pill. So that is pill dot instance. And this will create a pill node in the computer's memory. Now, later on, I'm going to want to add that to my game and put it somewhere as a child of something. So I need to be able to refer to that particular pill. Remember, every second we're creating a new pill here. So I need to be able to do something with the pill I just created. And in order to do that, I need to name that particular pill. So I'm going to call it new pill. Oh, sorry. Var new pill equals a pill. So now I have a way of tracking that pill that I've just made, and I can refer to it in the next line of code saying, well, just creating the pill doesn't actually put it into my game. The only way to put something into your game is to add it to this tree, and we got to figure out where we want to add it. In this case, the spawner's just sitting there, so there's no problem just adding it to spawner and having it do something. Later on, you may want to get it and add it to the test or add it to another node in your tree here, but in this case, I can just add it as a child of spawner. So that is just a function that's built in here called add child. And I'm just going to add child new pill. I'm going to that pill I just created in the computer's memory is now going to be added as a child of spawner. And that's because spawner is the code that we have, it's going to put it right there. And let's see if that's it. Oh, that's a mistake there. That should be a spatial node. There we go. Oh, and there it is over there. I put it, looks like I put it a bit far off in the wrong way. Let's go back to my 3D view here. Sorry about that. Get back into that 3D view. And let's put the spawner more in the middle there so we can have a look at those pills falling out of the middle of the air. There you go. Now it looks like the spawner is a little bit too high for me to see that, but I want you to see that it's actually just being created in the middle of the air, wherever the spawner sits, because we're adding it as a child there, and it should be applying every second. Our camera's still a little bit high. We're just creating it a little bit off the frame there. Oh, there it is right there. I'm still at a weird angle with that camera. But there you can see, and they're being created, and the central force is continuously being applied. So you just got this cascade of pills kind of being created, and they are constantly being pushed in a particular direction. Now, if you had a player in here, they would bump into that player and hit that player. Like so, and you know what, why we could even put that into our game. Now at the moment, let's see here, I've got a player on level 1, I think. I actually put the I put that spawner in there as well. Nope, maybe I didn't. Oh, it's an old spawner there. Let me delete that one. And if I go on to here, I'm just going to copy this. I could make it into a scene, but I'm just going to copy that one and place it onto level 1. So now we've got a spawner right here that's going to create those scenes, and I've got my player in there as well. And this particular player has a, oh, there they are there. I think I've just fallen off the edge of the earth here, sorry. Well, I can see as I fall to my doom, this pill, and oh, I haven't actually got a player on this object. Oh, there I am. I am player there. we've got that. The pills are not landing quite properly here. But if you could imagine, these pills would bump around and be manipulated. Here, what if we make our floor a little bit bigger here so we can actually get to those? There we go. Pills will land on top of the platform now. There we go. And you can see the pills just crashing into me. I've got my camera quite low and bouncing over top of me. Obviously having no effect other than me affecting them and manipulating them. So you can push them aside there, and we could have some kind of speed run, great game like that with a ton of fun here. But of course, they don't affect me. However, very easily we could fix that by simply adding to the pill a area. Give that area a collision shape. Of the same kind of pill, this capsule shape. Looks like it's perfectly lined up there nicely. I may want to scale that a little bit, just, you know, I don't know, 1.1, 10% bigger. Just so you can see that the pill, the collision shape is now slightly bigger than the rigid body itself, so it's not going to necessarily just bump into me and bounce off. I can have this collision shape hit me first, and then, you know, just like we did before with the fall zone, we could have that area send a signal to the pill and say, well, if the body.name is equal to player, like we did it before there, then we could get tree dot reload, get tree dot reload current scene. So there's kind of our death or restart the level kind of feature. And now you've got an object that is being controlled by physics, will bounce around and do all sorts of crazy things there. Where are my pills gone? There they are here. And if I happen to bump into them, let's actually get in the way of these. I think my camera is actually not manipulating this this player here. Oh, there we go. Then I bounce into it and I lose my life, and we could have some sound or something like that play. There they are. But you've now got some, oh, there we go, restart it again every time they hit me. So we've also got some, you can see these animation stampers that I've created there as well, not rigid bodies, but they could be nonetheless if you wanted to especially have them bouncing up and down in a natural way. Every time they hit the ground, you could give them a little force upwards. Be careful though, because they may, you know, bump into something else. But there is, you know, a quick little tutorial on creating rigid bodies and being able to animate them, to control them, to manipulate them around, and even to spawn them from your game.